All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. The Marriage Trap: How Modern Laws Destroy Men's Lives and What You Can Do About It. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. The Pedagogical Abattoir: How the State Castrated Your Boyhood and the Female Frame Enslaved Your Manhood. A Syllogistic Sledgehammer to the Zero-Tolerance Gulag, Indigenous Epistemologies, and the Comfort Zone Con, Rescuing the Western Spirit from the Woke Parasite with Logic and Natural Law. I watch the modern world and I do not see progress. I see a slaughterhouse built for the male spirit, tiled with the sterile ceramics of bureaucracy and sanitized by the antiseptic lies of cultural Marxism. You have been betrayed by the very institutions sworn to protect you. Consider the trivium, the bedrock of Western thought: grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The state has perverted the grammar of boyhood, redefining the kinetic, competitive energy of the protector class, evolutionarily forged over millennia to guard the city gates as a pathology requiring chemical castration. They have inverted the logic of justice, replacing due process with the hysterical fiat of zero tolerance, suspending 7-year-olds for chewing a Pop-Tart into the shape of a pistol while drug lords cross the border with impunity. This is not education. It is a pedagogical abattoir, a systematic dismantling of the logos to create compliant drones for the gynocracy. Do you think this assault ends at the schoolyard gates? It follows you into the bedroom, disguised as intimacy. The modern landscape of dating is a minefield of shit tests, manipulative interrogatories designed not to find a partner, but to break your frame. When she demands you step outside your comfort zone to prove your adventurousness, realize the trap. A man who prances like a monkey for female approval proves only that he is a slave, not a sovereign. You are dealing with a biological imperative rooted in solipsism, a domestic inquisition, where your compliance is the proof of your unworthiness. We will wield the sword of stoicism to sever these puppet strings, exposing the comfort zone fallacy for the power grab it is. Finally, we must address the death of the soul. You are asked if you have a philosophy by agents of the woke Borg, who believe truth is subjective and feelings are facts. This is the epistemological wasteland of the postmodern sewer. They demand you provide a metaphysical anchor while they actively scuttle the ship with the dead weight of indigenous epistemologies and critical theory. It is time to reclaim the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful, and build a fortress of natural law that the siege engines of Marxism cannot breach. We are not here to negotiate with the degenerate demons of the modern age. We are here to exorcise them with the irreducible force of dialectic and the living spirit of Western civilization. The Pedagogical Abattoir: How Zero-Tolerance Policies and Ethnic Studies Castrate the Male Spirit. A 7-year-old boy in Maryland was suspended from school for the high crime of chewing his strawberry Pop-Tart into the shape of a mountain which his teacher, a sentinel of the paranoid gynocracy, insisted resembled a gun. This is not an education, it is an exorcism. We are witnessing the public schooling system operate exactly as intended, not as a forum for the cultivation of intellect, but as a pedagogical abattoir. A slaughterhouse of the male spirit designed to drain the blood of agency from young men before they can even dream of resistance. When a child is punished for the phantasmagoric threat of a pastry, we are no longer in the realm of reason. We have entered the dark age of the feminine mystique, where subjective feelings trump objective reality and the mere potential for masculine energy is a crime punishable by banishment. This is the logical endpoint of zero tolerance, a linguistic mask for totalitarian intolerance of the biological imperatives of men. To understand the depth of this treachery, we must employ the trivium and dissect the terminology of our oppressors. Zero tolerance sounds like a rigorous safety standard, yet etymologically it reveals a pathological refusal to endure reality. The root tolerantia from the Latin tolerare means to bear or to endure. By enforcing zero tolerance, the administrative state declares, in bold neon letters, that it refuses to endure the innate kinetic nature of the male. The rough and tumble play, the formation of hierarchies, and the risk-taking that define boyhood are not pathologies to be medicated. They are the evolutionary apprenticeship of the protector class. Through the lens of natural law, these behaviors are good, true, and necessary for the survival of civilization. By pathologizing the very biomastery that built the Parthenon and tamed the frontiers, the educational gynocracy engages in a war on nature itself. This assault is not merely physical, it is chemical and metaphysical. We see the Ritalin gulags flourishing, where spirited young warriors are chained to desks and chemically lobotomized for the fabricated sin of ADHD. The statistics are damning. Boys are diagnosed at rates exponentially higher than girls, not because they are broken, but because the system demands compliant, zombie-like drones for the corporate hellscape, rather than dynamic agents of virtue. Simultaneously, they are subjected to the ethnic studies mind virus, a cannibalistic feast of cultural Marxism, where the transcendentals, the objective, good, true, and beautiful are replaced by the lived experience of victimhood. This is the vomit of critical theory designed to sever the young male from his ancestors, convincing him that his lineage is one of oppression rather than greatness. It is a syllogism of despair. Major premise: Western civilization is uniquely evil. Minor premise: you are a product of Western civilization. Conclusion: you must atone by castrating your own spirit. It is a lie from the pit of hell, and we reject it. The administrators enforcing this madness operate under gamma bias, a psychological distortion where masculine strength is reframed as violence and stoic resilience is misdiagnosed as emotional deficiency. These are the weak men of the West, possessed by the slave morality of the left, projecting their own inadequacies onto the young gods in their classrooms. They have replaced the apprenticeship mastery ladder, the noble ascent from novice to master, through merit and competence, with a ladder of privilege that shames achievement and demands the erosion of excellence. Consider the syllogism of dispossession. Major premise: due process requires objective standards of evidence and the presumption of innocence. Minor premise: zero tolerance policies utilize subjective threat assessments based on feelings rather than facts. Conclusion: therefore, zero tolerance is the death of justice and the birth of administrative tyranny. In this environment, a boy is guilty not for what he has done, but for who he is. The remedy is a return to the ancient wisdom of subsidiarity, stripping the Leviathan state of its monopoly on the formation of souls. Education must be ripped from the cold, dead hands of the NEA and returned to the domain of the family, the church, and the local guild. The father must reassert his role as the primary educator of the virtues, shielding his son from the toxic femininity that masquerades as nurture but functions as a suffocating shroud. We must save these boys from the Ritalin gulags, resurrect the logos, and teach them that they are not oppressors, but the heirs of a civilization that tamed the world. We break the spell of this cultural Marxism by speaking the truth. Male energy is not a threat to be neutralized, but the engine of the living spirit of the West. Wake up, take the red pill, and pull your sons out of the abattoir before the state consumes them whole. This slow-motion suicide of the male spirit is not an anomaly, but the inevitable output of the gynocentric operating system. A stark warning that the modern mantra of stepping out of your comfort zone is often nothing more than a linguistic Trojan horse, concealing a demand for male servitude. What the blue-pilled sucker mistakes for a request for spontaneity is, in reality, a ruthless evolutionary interrogatory, a fitness test designed to ascertain whether a man possesses a steel frame of his own or is merely a malleable clay doll waiting to be molded by female whim. To escape the fate of the discarded nice guy, we must rip away the sentimental veil and dissect the comfort zone fallacy with the cold steel of formal logic, exposing these tests not as expressions of love, but as the machinations of a hypergamous nature that despises nothing more than the weakness of a man who abandons his own mission to perform like a puppet for a woman's amusement. The domestic inquisition shit-tests comfort zones and the female manipulation of reality. Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever carved. Immanuel Kant once observed, yet he failed to specify that the carving tools are almost exclusively wielded by the feminine hand, shaping the male block into a utilitarian bowl for her own consumption. Consider the tragic comedy of Sir Galahad the Gainfully Employed, a modern nice guy I once knew who absorbed every lie of the feminine imperative, like a dry sponge in a tsunami. This poor bastard stepped out of his comfort zone so often he forgot where his spine was located. He jumped from perfectly functional airplanes, quit a lucrative career in engineering to find his passion in organic pottery, and relocated his entire existence to a damp, overpriced apartment in a city he hated. All because the current object of his affection claimed to love adventure. For 3 years, he was a performing seal, clapping his flippers for a fish that never came. The moment arrived when exhaustion set in. He hesitated, just once, when asked to sleep on the floor of a friend's apartment because she needed space. The switch flipped instantly. The tears dried up, the soft voice turned to ice, and she discarded him for a biker who didn't know a pottery wheel from a pothole. Submission does not breed gratitude. It breeds the specific, withering contempt of the conqueror for the conquered. The great Arthur Schopenhauer, that titan of Teutonic truth, pierced the veil of the feminine mystique with a clarity that would get him banned from Twitter today. He argued that women live entirely in the present, manipulating the current moment to secure resources, unburdened by the heavy masculine yoke of consistency or abstract justice. When a woman subjects you to the domestic inquisition, pretending to forget a birthday or a promise to see if you will grovel, she is not suffering from amnesia. She is running a tactical feint. This is the weaponized memory, a gaslighting artillery shell fired directly at your confidence. By inducing a state of apology for crimes you did not commit, she shifts the Overton window of the relationship. You are no longer the innocent party. You are the defendant in a kangaroo court, where she is judge, jury, and executioner. This is not a glitch in the matrix. It is a feature of the biological algorithm, a hardwired interrogation to determine if you are a sovereign agent of Logos or a sniveling slave to her whim. To understand why the nice guy strategy is a suicide mission, we must employ the cold steel blade of the syllogism to dissect the syllogism of the frame. Consider the major premise. A leader acts according to his own reason, mission, and dialectic, anchored in the transcendental truth of his own existence. The minor premise, a man who jumps through arbitrary hoops, leaving his comfort zone on command, acts according to another's will and emotion. The conclusion is mathematically inescapable. A man who passes these adventure tests by complying proves he is a follower, not a leader, and thereby fails the ultimate biological test of attractiveness. You cannot negotiate desire with submission. By constantly proving you are willing to change your trajectory for her amusement, you demonstrate that your frame is weak and your reality is malleable. You are advertising yourself as a butler, not a king. The modern gynocentric propaganda machine, fueled by the cultural Marxism of the universities, screams that men must constantly leave their comfort zones to be worthy of love. This is the comfort zone fallacy, a lie designed to keep men in a state of permanent anxiety and reactivity. True growth, the mastery ladder of the guilds, the stoic resilience of the Roman legions, comes from logos and discipline, not the chaotic, solipsistic demands of a partner bored by her own lack of purpose. When she demands you prove yourself via arbitrary trials, she is engaging in the dialectic of dread. She is poking the bear with a stick, terrified that the bear has turned into a rug. She wants to feel the edge of your danger. She wants to know that the monster is still alive behind your eyes. If you simply roll over and perform tricks like a circus animal, you confirm her worst fear, that you are not a monster, but a eunuch, and she will promptly go find a monster who refuses to roll over. The remedy to this manipulation is not anger, but the shield of the trivium and the sword of stoicism. When the test comes, and it will come, you must utilize grammar to identify the premise of her request. Is it rational or emotional manipulation? Logic to spot the fallacy, the appeal to emotion, the shifting of the burden of proof, and rhetoric to respond with stoic indifference rather than reactive emotion. The stoic response of amor fati, loathing one's fate and refusing to apologize for one's existence, is the only way to pass. You refuse the premise. You remain in the fortress of your own mission. You do not leave your comfort zone for her. You expand your comfort zone by conquering the world for yourself. If she wishes to ride shotgun in your chariot, she may, but the chariot does not stop for tantrums. We must reject the feminization of the male spirit as a weakness presaging the fall of our civilization. Re-enshrine the truth. Smash the modern Babylon of woke with the hammer of dialectic, and never apologize for being the man you were born to be. I once sat across a mahogany table from a creature of the postmodern void, a woman thoroughly sterilized of intuition by the academic priesthood of resentment. I offered a morsel of natural law, the simple, observable axiom that biology dictates function, and that the family unit is the cellular structure of the state, a concept known to every apprentice master from Rome to 1950s America. Her reaction was not a counter-argument utilizing the dialectic, but an epileptic seizure of critical theory jargon. She shrieked about heteronormativity and patriarchal oppression, wielding words like a toddler wields a loaded gun, oblivious to the fact that her lived experience is an anecdotal fallacy unworthy of a rational mind. This was not a conversation, it was a collision of civilizations. On one side stood the logos of the West, fixed, eternal, and grounded in the transcendental good. On the other stood the neo-Marxist rebellion against being itself. When a modern woman tests your philosophy, realize that she is not checking for wisdom, she is checking for heresy against the bloated, egalitarian cult she has swallowed hook, line, and sinker. The epistemological wasteland, testing for philosophy in a postmodern sewer. I once sat across a mahogany table from a creature of the postmodern void, a woman thoroughly sterilized of intuition by the academic priesthood of resentment. I offered a morsel of natural law, the simple, observable axiom that biology dictates function, and that the family unit is the cellular structure of the state, a concept known to every apprentice master from Rome to 1950s America. Her reaction was not a counter-argument utilizing the dialectic, but an epileptic seizure of critical theory jargon. She shrieked about heteronormativity and patriarchal oppression, wielding words like a toddler wields a loaded gun, oblivious to the fact that her lived experience is an anecdotal fallacy unworthy of a rational mind. This was not a conversation, it was a collision of civilizations. On one side stood the logos of the West, fixed, eternal, and grounded in the transcendental good. On the other stood the neo-Marxist rebellion against being itself. When a modern woman tests your philosophy, realize that she is not checking for wisdom, she is checking for heresy against the bloated, egalitarian cult she has swallowed hook, line, and sinker. If you possess a big picture view that aligns with the laws of physics and the wisdom of the ancients, acknowledging that men are the architects of civilization and women, the civilizers of men, you will be framed as a bigot. The modern test for a man's philosophy is a trap designed to filter out anyone who refuses to bow to the idol of egalitarianism, a demon that flies in the face of subsidiarity and human nature. The irony, thick enough to choke a horse, is that these women possess no philosophy themselves. They are metaphysical vagrants, drifting in a sea of feelings and solipsism, demanding you provide the anchor they spent a decade in university sawing off. They demand you be a rock of stability, yet they pelt you with stones for not being made of sand. They want the benefits of the patriarchy, the provision, the protection, the order, without the oppressive duties that make it possible. It is a test of conformity, not of truth. To pass this test, you must reclaim the very definition of the word from the thieves. Philosophia is the love of wisdom, not the love of grievance studies. It is the relentless pursuit of the good, the true, and the beautiful, the transcendentals that the sewer of cultural Marxism explicitly denies. To have a philosophy is to be grounded in the great books, in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics and Aquinas' Summa Theologica, not the ramblings of a depressed French existentialist or a bitter feminist hammering away at a typewriter while the taxes of working men pay for her contraception. A man who knows the difference between dialectic and rhetoric, who understands the trivium, cannot be moved by the emotional incoherence of a feminist who thinks lived experience trumps objective reality. You must return to the canon. It is the only shield against the weaponized stupidity of the modern age. Consider the danger of the man who lacks this armor. He is spiritually castrated, a hollow vessel waiting to be filled with the sewage of the prevailing zeitgeist, the woke Borg. This man is a leaf in the wind of hysteria, apologizing for his existence while the wolves devour his legacy, because he lacks a mixed constitution within his own soul, where reason rules over spirit and appetite. He becomes a slave to the appetites of others. He is useless as a protector or a provider because he cannot even protect his own mind from infection. He is the product of a society that has abandoned the apprenticeship mastery ladder of virtue for the instant gratification of the consumer cattle pen. He has no center and therefore he cannot stand. The intellectual bankruptcy of the left is total and can be dismantled with a simple syllogism, major premise. A coherent worldview requires a hierarchy of values, a recognition that some things are objectively better than others, transcendentals. Minor premise: leftism and feminism deny hierarchy and objective truth, claiming all narratives are equal constructs of power. Conclusion: therefore, the modern leftist cannot judge a man's philosophy because they possess no standard by which to measure it. They are attempting to measure the height of a mountain with a ruler made of fog. Do not let the inmates run the asylum. You must build your soul like the ancients built their republics, with a mixed constitution. Just as a stable state balances the monarchical, aristocratic, and democratic elements, a balanced man allows reason to rule over his spirit and his appetite. Without this internal hierarchy, a man is either a tyrant enslaved by his lusts or a slave tyrannized by the state and the shrieking harpies who worship it. You have successfully fortified your mind against the syllogism of the void and rearmed your spirit with the transcendentals. But this internal reconstruction is precisely what the gynocentric order intends to dismantle through legal and biological warfare. The modern female, stripped of the virtues that once tempered her hypergamy, now operates as an agent of the state, utilizing the chimera of romantic love to bypass your philosophical defenses and access your resources. To survive this siege, you must stop viewing the feminine as a metaphysical partner and start analyzing the encounter as a biomechanical transaction weaponized by cultural Marxism to harvest the lifeblood of Western civilization. The renaissance of the will, smashing the marriage trap and reclaiming the spirit. I have called this principle by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved by the term natural selection. Darwin gave us the mechanics of biology, but he politely omitted the mechanics of the modern female legal strategy, which is unnatural selection, the systematic harvesting of male resources via the state's monopoly on violence. You stand at the precipice of a demographic winter, staring into the abyss of a civilization that has cashiered its patriarchs for the price of a divorce settlement. The legal system is no longer a mechanism for justice. It is a wealth transfer algorithm designed to subsidize the chaotic hypergamy of the feminine imperative with the sweat of your brow. You are not a partner. You are a host. The marriage trap is set. The bait is romantic affection. And the jaws are the no-fault divorce statutes that turn a husband into an indentured servant. To step into that trap is not an act of love. It is a violation of the natural law of self-preservation. Consider the nuclear option of paternity. A man walks into a courtroom, let's call him John, and discovers that the child he has raised for 5 years carries the DNA of a transient lover his wife met during a girl's trip to Cabo. In any sane era, operating under the dictates of natural law, the fraud would nullify the contract. But we do not live in a sane era. We live under the tyranny of the tender years doctrine and its mutant descendants. The court looks at John, shrugs its judicial shoulders, and says the best interest of the child requires you to pay. This is paternity fraud, sanctioned by the state. To marry without a prenuptial agreement tighter than a drum is to buy a financial derivative with unlimited downside and zero collateral. You are betting half your net worth on the hormonal stability of a creature biologically programmed for hypergamy, trading up and legally empowered to execute that trade at your expense. How did you get here? You must understand the synthesis of the attack. You were sabotaged before you even signed the license. The government school and incubation chamber for docility crushed your spirit with Ritalin and zero-tolerance policies, punishing the masculine energy of competition as a pathology, CH1. The culture, saturated in the cultural Marxist smog of equality, told you that your natural drive to dominate was toxic, leaving you a hollow shell easily broken by the first pretty face who demanded you check your privilege, CH2. Then, the philosophy of the Enlightenment was hijacked by critical theory, convincing you that the patriarchy, the very structure that built the roads you drive on, is the source of all evil, CH3. This is a coordinated conspiracy of incompetence. They broke your spirit to make you pliable, broke your frame to make you controllable, and broke your philosophy to make you guilty, all so you would walk willingly into the marriage trap. To escape, you must execute the syllogism of revivification, major premise. Civilization is the product of the channeled male will. The aqueducts, the code of Hammurabi, the cathedrals, and the space program were all built by men who had a stake in the future. Minor premise. Modern laws are designed to demonize and dismantle the male will, punishing competence to subsidize incompetence. Conclusion. To save civilization, you must ignore modern laws and re-enshrin the natural law of the patriarch. You do not ask the state for permission to be a man. You assert it. You become the sovereign of your own destiny, recognizing that a state that enforces equity over merit has forfeited its legitimacy. You reclaim your will by refusing to fund your own destruction. This reclamation begins with the apprenticeship to mastery. Why are you sending your sons, or yourself, to the university, to be indoctrinated by a queer theory professor who couldn't change a tire if her life depended on it? That is the path of the gamma male, the intellectual coward who mistakes credentials for competence. You must bypass the degenerate university system entirely. Enter the apprenticeship mastery ladder of trades, skills, and intellectual combat. Learn to weld, to code, to gut a fish, and to formulate a syllogism that shreds a leftist argument in seconds. True value lies not in the diploma on the wall, but in the utility in your hands. A man who can build, fix, and fight is immune to the winds of economic collapse. A man with a degree in gender studies is only fit to ask if you want fries with that. Once you have mastered a craft, you must reclaim adventure. The modern beta male thinks adventure is a clownish performance, a trip to Disney World or a tropical resort funded by credit cards, all to win the fleeting approval of a bored girlfriend. This is pathetic. Adventure is the hero's path. It is the solitary quest for competence, danger, and the expansion of one's own sovereignty. You climb the mountain not to post the photo on Instagram, but to look down at the world and realize you are separate from it. It is the cultivation of the atelic, doing things for their own sake, for the glory of the act, not for the utility of female validation. You go into the wilderness to remind yourself that you are a creature of the wild, not a domesticated pet in a gynocentric cage. With competence and adventure comes the cavalier attitude. Look to the aristocracy of old, specifically the cavaliers who opposed the deer, joyless roundheads. They were polite, charming, and cultured, but utterly unyielding and ruthless in the defense of their boundaries and resources. This is the antidote to the nice guy syndrome. You are not nice. Niceness is the currency of the weak, used to purchase safety. You are good. You are a gentleman with a sword hidden in the velvet. When a feminist screeches about the wage gap, you do not apologize. You chuckle and walk away, knowing her argument is a logical fallacy refuted by the law of supply and demand. You treat women with the courtesy one affords a dangerous animal, but you never let them set the terms of the engagement. You are the rock, the water breaks against you, and you do not move, finally, you must build the monastery of the mind. The mainstream culture is a rotting carcass, bloated with the gases of degeneracy and cultural Marxism. You cannot save it, you can only quarantine yourself from it. This is the parallel polis formed civil society associations with like-minded men. These are not mere drinking clubs, but orders of the spirit. Here in the garage, in the gym, in the private forum, the virtues can be cultivated. Here, the trivium, grammar, logic, and rhetoric is taught. Here, the truth is spoken without fear of the HR department or the sensitivity reader. You create a shadow economy and a shadow culture, a vessel to carry the flame of Western civilization through the coming dark age. This is your transcendental defense. The forces arrayed against you utilize toxic femininity, the weaponization of emotion, the manipulation of sympathy, and the chaos of solipsism. To combat this, you must cling to the true logic. You must strip away the emotional framing and dissect their arguments with the cold scalpel of reason. When they scream equity, you define your terms and expose the envy at the root of their ideology. To fight the cultural degeneracy, the ugly architecture, the tuneless music, the formless art, you must cling to the beautiful, you seek excellence. You lift heavy weights to chisel a classical form. You read the great books to cultivate a noble mind. You do not engage with the filth, you transcend it. By embodying the good, the true, and the beautiful, you become a living refutation of the modern world. You are the renaissance of the will. Smash the trap. Reclaim the spirit. Do not mistake this essay for a mere collection of grievances. Consider it your honorable discharge papers from the suicide pact of modern gynocracy. You have survived the pedagogical abattoir of the school system, which drugs the kinetic spirit of the knightly class with Ritalin to better turn you into a compliant drone for the corporate state. You have navigated the domestic inquisition of manipulative testing, realizing that a woman who demands you leave your comfort zone is simply a chaotic agent, seeking to destroy your logos and subordinate your mission to her momentary whims. You have seen the epistemological wasteland for what it is. A void where leftist ideologues demand you apologize for the very virtues, strengths, stoicism, reason that built the pillars of the West. By recognizing these traps, you have already won the opening gambit. You have reclaimed the dialectic from the demon of cultural Marxism and armed yourself with the sword of natural law. Consider the math of your own potential destruction should you choose to ignore these warnings. The divorce courts operate on a logic of predation that would make Machiavelli blush, stripping fathers of assets and children with a blind, bureaucratic efficiency that mirrors the worst excesses of history, all while maintaining the theatrical lie of equality. When you sign that marriage license in a gynocentric state, you are effectively co-signing a contract with the entity that holds the power to unilaterally dissolve your life's work based on the capricious emotional weather of a partner indoctrinated by intersectional grievance studies. The lived experience of the thousands of men who have lost their homes to the no-fault guillotine is the only statistic you need to prove that the current system is a rigged game. You are the ATM they are trying to hack, and your blind trust is the PIN number they seek. But you are no longer blind. You have been inoculated against the mind virus of wokeism by the potent serum of truth. The remedy to the lived experience lie is the transcendent absolute. The cure for the subjective chaos of feminist feelings is the objective order of Western canon. You must now embody the virtues of the ancestors, the fortitude of the Stoic, the logic of the Scholastic, and the mastery of the artisan. Build your life not on the shifting sands of female approval or the Marxist lie of equity, but on the bedrock of competence and the apprenticeship ladder of excellence. You are a sovereign agent of the living spirit of civilization. Go forth, spread this red pill gospel to your brothers who still slumber in the blue-pilled nightmare, secure in the knowledge that while the world may be a sewer of degenerate lies, you stand as the unmoved mover, the rational actor, the man who knows the game and refuses to lose. And now the sponsored book introduction, The Marriage Trap. How modern laws destroy men's lives and what you can do about it. My own wake-up call came with the dawn raid. Officers pounding on my door. My wife's whispered accusation, "I'm scared," echoing in the hallway. That was all it took. Handcuffs clicked. I was torn from my home, my children, my life, ordered away indefinitely. No charges filed, just an allegation, my bank accounts frozen, my reputation shredded. I became a ghost haunting motel rooms, paying for the privilege of my own destruction through court orders. This isn't justice, it's state-sanctioned theft, disguised as protection. It's the marriage trap snapping shut. This book is my battle report. It's for the man who understands marriage isn't love. It's the riskiest contract he'll ever sign. For the father treated like an ATM and a criminal by family courts. For the rational man seeing the gynocratic tilt-poisoning society turning equality into a weapon against him. If you're tired of being a second-class citizen on the marriage plantation, enslaved by alimony and child support demands while denied access to your kids, this is your lifeline. If you believe biology matters, that men lead families, and that the current system is designed to break you financially and spiritually, read on. Inside, you'll get the unflinching truth. We dissect the legal lies trapping husbands, the marriage contract, your signature on a time bomb. We expose how courts became weapons, gynocracy rising. We detail the ruinous machinery of false allegations, the allegation industrial complex, and financial annihilation, financial castration, child support funding your own destruction. You'll learn evolutionary truths about female mating strategies used against you, evolutionary betrayal, and the government's profit motive in destroying your home, the state as pimp. Crucially, we give you actionable tools, legal self-defense, financial firewalls, vigilance protocols, and exit strategies. This is your counter-offensive manual. If you're steeped in feminist dogma, if you believe toxic masculinity is real while demanding men be strong yet vulnerable, if you think the system is fair, put this book down. Go knit a virtue-signaling scarf. This isn't for the faint of heart or the ideologically blinded. It's for men ready to face uncomfortable biological and legal realities, reclaim their honor, and build unbreakable lives, the Phoenix Protocol. Your wedding ring is a noose if you're ignorant. This book cuts the rope. Read it, arm yourself, survive, then lead. Your future depends on it. The Marriage Trap: How Modern Laws Destroy Men's Lives and What You Can Do About It, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.